CBS News foreign correspondent Margaret Brennan has been traveling with the president and now joins us from Hiroshima. And Margaret, again, we know that the president has made it his mission to end nuclear proliferation. So what kind of impact do they hope that today's visit has on that goal?
Well, this visit was really supposed to be the exclamation point on the sentence of we must get arms control and nuclear security locked up under this administration. That was President Obama's goal, and he hopes it'll be one of his legacies. And he has had some significant arms control agreements, certainly with Russia and then with Iran. But when you look at Pentagon data in terms of America's own stockpile, he hasn't had as much progress. In fact, he's reduced America's own weapons less than any other post-Cold War presidency. So coming here today, he's really trying to emphasize and push and say, look, we can get past the divide between the U.S. and Japan. The United States is the only country to have ever used an atomic bomb in war on this very country where we're standing right now. So the idea that these two former enemies can now be allies to try to get arms control to happen, particularly with an eye towards North Korea, which is very much a threat in this region, is a symbolic and significant step. And that's really what this visit was about.
And controversy has framed the president's decision not to apologize for the World War II bombings today. Interestingly, though, that controversy actually extends to South Korean survivors.
It does. I mean, there's a lot of emotion wrapped up in this visit at home in the U.S. and within the region. This is really reverberating because of the symbolism. You know, most Americans grew up thinking of Japan as an ally, certainly in the younger generations. But for those who lived through the war, Japan at that time was a serious imperial power, and there were a lot of atrocities in South Korea, in China, in this region, and there is still a lot of anger. So here in Japan, there were some South Koreans who died actually in the Hiroshima bombing, thousands of them. And so President Obama, if you listen to his full speech, he did mention them by name, along with some American POWs who were killed in the blast. But there are some in the region who say the U.S. coming here is in some way not condemning Japan, but rather recognizing it, when they should be emphasizing that Japan was a very belligerent country and carried out its own atrocities. President Obama in the White House would say, look, this is about working together to stop atrocities, particularly nuclear ones, in the future, and that we need to put some of those divides of the past to bed. And in fact, the U.S. has been pushing Japan to apologize to South Korea and to others for some of those atrocities. So there's a lot of, palace politics, there's a lot of symbolism, and there's a lot of emotion here throughout Asia surrounded in this visit.
Yeah, a symbolic sense of closure. We did just see some pictures of the president actually hugging one of the atomic bomb survivors. We're seeing that here again. What can you tell us about this moment?
It was really touching to see. If you look at that, I think you're looking at the same video with the older gentleman. He seems to almost tear up and cry. I believe that's one of the documentary filmmakers and historians who's actually worked to get names memorialized of the victims here, not just the Japanese, but the American victims, 12 of them, prisoners of war. Someone who really cares and has made a mission out of having each life remembered, all 140,000 of them that were killed in the blast and from radiation in the days following. So to have the President of the United States, 7 decades later, stand in front of you, deliver not only this speech, but to hear you out and to recognize you for all the work you've done, it is, I'm sure, an emotionally moving moment for him. And there were other survivors as well, sitting in the front rows here. In the Peace Park you see right behind me, across from high-level Japanese and U.S. officials. It was those survivors, the very few of them who are still around. And the president said, look, you have to look to them. You have to listen to their stories, because you can't afford to forget the past. These memories are painful, but they really underscore the nuclear threat that continues to exist today.
Indeed. A historic day, really, in a place of such brutal history. Margaret Brennan, traveling with the president. We appreciate the time.